Rain hammers the mountain highway north of New York City, turning the world beyond the windshield into a smear of gray. Violet Hart tightens her grip on the wheel of her black Bentley. The wipers can barely keep up. Her phone glows in the cup holder, the last message from her deputy Gray Carter lighting the screen. Think carefully before you do something you will regret. A few hours ago, she was in the glass boardroom at Hart Media, standing at the head of the table in a sharp suit, a folder of evidence in her hand. 6 shell companies, she had said, voice flat. Fake advertisers, all wired back to an account in your name, Gray. 10 million out of our budget. Charts and numbers glowed on the screen behind her. Directors shifted in their chairs. Gray had smiled, soft and respectful. I am sure there is a reasonable explanation, he said. Finance will clear this up. Finance already did. Violet shot back. You stole from us. I am calling a press conference tomorrow. I will go public. You are suspended effective now. For a second his polite mask had cracked. His eyes had gone hard. You are making a mistake, he murmured as security moved toward him. People with this much money on the line do not forgive mistakes. Now the memory rattles around inside the car as thunder booms over the mountains. The guardrail hugs a black drop into trees. Violet glances at her phone again. Turn back. We can fix this quietly. You have no idea who you are provoking. She laughs once, humorless. I am done being afraid of you, she mutters. Headlights explode in the rearview mirror. A black sedan clings to her bumper, high beams on full. She flicks her signal and eases aside, but the sedan moves with her, too close. Back off, she whispers. The sedan swings out, surges up beside her, and slams into the Bentley. Metal shrieks. The wheel yanks under her hands. Through the rain streaking the side window she sees a familiar jawline in the other car. Gray. He hits her again. The tires lose grip. The guardrail scrapes, then gives way with a scream. For one frozen heartbeat the car hangs half over the edge. Violet has time to think, very calmly, so this is how it ends. Then gravity wins. The Bentley plunges into darkness, crashing through brush and branches. The airbag erupts. Glass explodes. When everything finally stops, the car lies at a crooked angle, half buried in wet earth. Silence, except for rain. Pain blooms everywhere. Her ribs burn, her arm is useless, something warm and sticky runs down her face. She drags in a breath that tastes of blood and burnt air. Up above, through the shattered windshield, she can just see the break in the guardrail and the glow of taillights. The sedan pulls away, unhurried, disappearing into the storm. He leaves her. Help, she croaks. It barely counts as sound. The edges of the world start to blur. Help me. The dim light fades. The last thing she sees is one headlight still glowing weakly over wet grass. Then everything goes dark. Light and the smell of coffee. Violet opens her eyes to a wooden ceiling. A soft blanket covers her. Rain taps gently at a nearby window instead of roaring. Her ribs ache in a dull, heavy way. Her left arm is in a sling. She jerks upright. Pain lances through her side. A strangled sound escapes. Easy, a low voice says. A man sits beside the bed, close enough that she can see faint stubble on his jaw. Dark blonde hair curls slightly at his collar. His eyes are calm green, steady and focused. He holds a roll of gauze. You are safe, he says. Breathe. Where am I? She rasps. Who are you? In my cabin, he answers. In the mountains north of the city. I am Evan Miller. I am a veterinarian. I found your car in the ditch last night, and dragged you out before it slid further. You hit your head. You have a concussion, broken ribs, a lot of bruises. She searches her mind. Blank. I do not remember, she whispers. Panic rises fast. I do not remember anything. My name, my job, where I live. Nothing. Her heart gallops. The room tilts. Evan rests a hand on her good shoulder, firm but gentle. Look at me, he says. She meets his eyes. His voice stays calm. Memory loss after a head injury is not unusual, he says. It might come back. Right now you are alive, your lungs work, and there is no bleeding in your brain that I can see. That is a win. She sucks in air in short, jerky breaths until they slowly even out. You had a wallet, Evan goes on. But the storm soaked it. The ID inside is ruined. Your phone was smashed. So until we know more, we keep things simple. You rest. I keep you off the radar. The phrase scrapes against the fog in her mind. Off the radar. She echoes. Why would I need that? Evan hesitates. When I pulled over, he says. There was a black sedan on the shoulder. No hazard lights. No one trying to help. As soon as I stopped, it sped away. The way you hit that guardrail did not look like you just lost control. Something cold uncurls in her chest. A vague memory of headlights and another car looms, just out of reach. You think someone did this to me on purpose, she says. I think, he says slowly, that until we know more, it is safer if anyone looking for you believes you did not walk away. She stares at him. You want people to think I am dead, she says. If someone tried to kill you once, they may try again. Evan replies. This cabin sits off a back road no one visits unless they know it is here. The drop where you went over is steep. There was a landslide after the storm. The sheriff already thinks no one survived. It is easy to let certain people stay wrong. Her head buzzes. She presses her fingers to her temples. I do not even know my name, she whispers. Evan considers her for a moment. We can borrow one, he says. We need something to call you besides hey you. He looks at her dark hair, at the stubborn line of her jaw even through fear. You look like a violet, he says. Sharp, strong, a little dangerous. The word sparks a strange echo inside her, like a light flickering in a hallway. Violet, she repeats softly. It feels right and wrong at the same time, like a coat that almost fits. All right. Violet it is, Evan says. I will be in the next room. If you remember anything, even something small, tell me. And if anyone shows up asking questions, I answer, not you. She watches him leave the room, then stares at the ceiling, listening to the rain, and to a heart that does not know who it belongs to. Somewhere far below the cabin, a man in a black sedan sits on the shoulder of a narrow road, looking at a news alert on his phone. Storm, landslide, one vehicle missing, believed lost. He smiles, types 2 words to an unknown number. Problem solved. Then he drives back toward the city, already planning life in a world where Violet Hart does not exist. The next days blur into a pattern of pain meds, bandage changes, and simple routines. Evan moves around the small cabin with silent efficiency, checking her ribs, listening to her lungs, coaxing her to eat. The living room is full of books, jars of herbs, and framed photos of dogs and horses. The kitchen is neat, the guest room small but bright. It is not much, he says. But you are safe. Safe. The word sinks deep. When she can finally walk more than a few steps, he helps her around the cabin. Her injuries protest, but the movement clears some of the fog in her head. She looks at the wood stove, the creaky stairs to the loft, the old guitar leaning in a corner. Are you sure you are just a vet? She asks one afternoon, wincing as he adjusts her sling. You do this like it is not your first broken human. I used to be a surgeon downtown, he says. Long hours. Bad coffee. A kid died on my table. The hospital decided my name made better cover than their policy failures. I signed some papers and left. And came here, she says. And came here. He agrees. Animals do not sue. She sees the shadow behind his calm for a moment. He sees the curiosity in her face, and lets the subject drop. On the third day, a small whirlwind arrives. Violet wakes to a high voice outside. She shuffles to the window and tears out. A little girl in a bright jacket runs in circles in front of the cabin, waving a bunch of wildflowers. A spotted dog bounds around her. Evan stands by the barn, laughing. Careful, Lily, he calls. You will give the goats a heart attack. Violet steps outside, bracing herself on the door frame. Lily spots her instantly. You are awake. Lily gasps. Are you a ghost? Evan said you almost died. You are very pretty for someone who almost died. Violet blinks. Ah, thank you, she says. I am Lily. The girl announces. I live next door. Well, down the hill. The goats are mine. Evan said you hit your head and forgot stuff. Do you remember your name? Do you remember pizza? It is important. Lily. Evan warns, but he is smiling. Violet lets out an unexpected laugh. I remember pizza, she says. My name is Violet. It feels less strange this time. Lily grins and thrusts the flowers at her. Then you need these, Lily says. The cabin looked sad. Now it can look less sad. The bouquet is mostly weeds, but to Violet it might as well be roses. Thank you, she whispers. Lily becomes part of the landscape almost immediately. After school she charges up the path, dumps her backpack on the porch, and drags Violet outside. You cannot stay inside all day, Lily declares. That is how you turn into furniture. They feed chickens, scatter corn for the goats, and watch deer at the edge of the trees. Violet moves slowly, but the mountain air clears her lungs. At night, when thunder growls, she lies awake until she hears the soft sound of guitar strings. The first time she pads into the living room at midnight, Evan looks up from the couch. Could not sleep? He asks. It sounds like that night. She admits. He nods and shifts his fingers on the strings, playing something gentle and repetitive. My mom used to play when storms scared me, he says. Count the chords instead of the thunder. The cabin fills with warm sound. She focuses on his hands, on each change. Slowly her breathing slows. You do not have to thank me for this, he says when she murmurs thanks. You live here now. The thunder does not get to win. That phrase lodges somewhere deep. You live here now. Days stack carefully. Her memory remains patchy. She sees flashes, bright lights, cameras, a logo on a wall. The word heart tugs at her like a hook in the dark, but when she reaches for it, pain spikes and the image dissolves. One afternoon, Evan leaves his laptop open on the kitchen table, while he checks on an injured dog in the barn. Violet wanders in for water and stops. A news site fills the screen. The headline reads, Heart Media CEO missing after storm. Under it, a photo shows a woman in a sharp purple suit behind a podium, the Heart Media logo glowing behind her. The woman has Violet's face. A bolt of pain knifes through Violet's skull. She grips the table. The room narrows. Heart. She whispers. The word unlocks something. Images crash through her mind. The boardroom, Gray's polite eyes gone cold, the slippery road, the black sedan. Violet Hart. She gasps. I am Violet Hart. He tried to kill me. The glass of water slips from her hand and shatters. Evan rushes in and catches her as her knees buckle. Breathe, he orders. She clings to his shirt and forces air into her lungs. He pushed me off the road. She stammers when she can speak. Gray Carter, my deputy. I found out he was stealing. He sent that car. He thought I died. Evan's jaw tightens. He closes the laptop with a soft click. Then it is time to stop pretending this was just an accident. He says quietly. Gray will think he won. Violet says. He will be relaxed. He will be careless. Careless people leave footprints. Evan says. We need proof. We need allies. And we need to be ready for the moment he sends someone up this mountain to check his work. They make a plan at the kitchen table, coffee mugs and scraps of paper scattered between them. Violet lists names, board members, advertisers, a government regulator she once helped, an anchor she backed when sponsors complained. Lila Santos, she says. Investigative journalist. I protected her segment when everyone told me to kill it. Marcus Hale, outside counsel. Too stubborn to scare easily. Good. Evan says. We will need people who like picking fights. They have barely finished their list when headlights wash briefly across the cabin walls. Violet stiffens. Stay inside. Evan says. He grabs a flashlight and an old bat from behind the door and steps out. Through a crack in the curtain, Violet sees two men in dark jackets walk up the path. One flashes a badge too quickly. State investigators. He says. Heard there was a car off the highway during the storm. We are canvassing. You did not see anything, did you? His smile is wrong. His eyes are flat. Evan leans on the porch post. All small-town vet. Storm made a mess. He says. Tree down on my road. Raccoon in my trash. If a car went over up there, it kept going down. I was home. Power flickered. My neighbor can vouch. He called all night to complain about his satellite dish. We should take a look around. The second man says. Got a warrant? Evan asks pleasantly. The men exchange a look. This is just routine. The first says. No need to make it difficult. I am not. Evan replies. Just legally accurate. They stand in the drizzle, tension stretching thin. Finally the first man sighs. Fine. He says. Let us go. If you see anything strange, call it in. Will do. Evan says. He watches them leave, then comes back inside. They were not here for your health. He says. Gray sent them. Violet says. Or whoever pays him. Either way. Evan says. They think they are fishing in the right lake now. They will be back, or someone else will. Violet looks around the small living room. For the first time, the cabin feels too small, like a hiding place already found. I cannot stay here forever, she says. If I hide, Gray wins. He will keep bleeding the company dry and telling whatever story suits him. Heart Media was my family's work. I will not let him turn it into his personal slush fund. Then we pick the battlefield. Evan says. Not his mountain road, not my front yard. Your home turf. The company. She says. The company. He agrees. They drive down to the small town the next day. In the corner of a coffee shop, with Evan keeping an eye on the door, Violet calls Lila. Lila, she says when the anchor answers. Do not freak out. It is Violet. I am alive. There is a long silence, then a curse, then rapid questions. They talk for an hour. Lila cries once, swears a lot, then starts planning angles. Gray looks like a hero right now. Lila says. Poor loyal deputy, holding the fort while his boss vanishes. When you walk back through those doors, half the city will explode. Good. Violet says. I want them watching. She calls Marcus next. He does not waste time on surprise. I always said that man was slime. Marcus says. You finally ready to let me take him apart? With evidence. She says. And with every camera in the building pointed at his face. When she hangs up, Evan slides her a fresh cup of coffee. You ready? He asks. No. She admits. But I am going anyway. 3 weeks after the crash, Violet walks into Heart Media's lobby. Screens on the walls replay old segments. The logo glows above the reception desk. Conversations die mid-sentence as people see her. Miss Hart. The receptionist whispers. We thought. I know. Violet says. Please send a message. All hands meeting in Studio 1 in 20 minutes. Mandatory. The woman nods, eyes shining. Violet and Evan take the elevator up. In the hallway by Studio 1, Lila waits, arms crossed. You look annoyingly alive. Lila says, pulling her into a hug. Gray is going to choke. Let us make sure we get it on camera. Violet says. Inside, staff fill the seats. Producers, camera operators, editors, assistants. Gray enters with 2 board members, irritation on his face. Who called this? He snaps. I did not authorize. His gaze lands on Violet. Color drains from his face. The whole room holds its breath. Hello, Gray. Violet says, standing near the stage steps. Did you miss me? He recovers quickly, that familiar soft smile snapping back into place. Violet. He says warmly. Thank God. We have all been so worried. The investigators said there was little chance you survived. Unlikely is not impossible. She says. I have had a lot of time to think about odds. Lila signals the control room. The feed switches. Every screen in the building now shows Studio 1. Violet steps onto the stage. As you can see. She tells the room, and the cameras. I am not dead. 3 weeks ago, on a stormy night, my car left a mountain road after a collision with another vehicle. I woke up in a stranger's cabin with no memory and a lot of questions. People lean forward. Gray's jaw muscle jumps. I remembered enough to know one thing. Violet continues. It was not an accident. She gestures. The main screen behind her fills with a simple graphic of accounts and arrows. Before the crash, I discovered that funds were being stolen from Heart Media through fake vendors. She says. Those funds led back to accounts controlled by Gray Carter and his associates. Murmurs rise. That is a distortion. Gray cuts in, moving forward. Complex transactions can look simple if you present them without context. We were restructuring. We were protecting assets in a turbulent market. Interesting protection. Violet says. Since it mostly protected your lifestyle. Lila flips to another slide. Email excerpts. Messages about hiding transfers. And when I told Gray I would expose this misconduct. Violet says. I was run off the road. Wild accusation. Gray says sharply. You disappeared in a storm. Trauma is clouding your memory. You cannot prove any of this. I did not come alone. Violet replies. Evan steps to a floor microphone. My name is Evan Miller. He says. I live near the stretch of highway where Ms. Hart's car went over. I saw a black Bentley hit the guardrail after being forced from its lane by another car. The other car stopped briefly, then drove away fast. I climbed down to the wreck and pulled her out. She was unconscious and bleeding. Nobody else came. Gray snorts. We are relying on a rural vet now. He says. People see shapes in storms. I thought you might say that. Evan says calmly. So I brought my dash cam footage. The grainy clip plays. 2 sets of headlights, the sudden lurch, the guardrail giving way, another car pulling off. On its own, this is circumstantial. Violet says. But Marcus Hale and his team obtained your phone records this morning. The next slide shows a timestamp from Gray's phone pinging off a tower near the crash site, matched to a text sent minutes later. Problem solved. Sweat beads at Gray's hairline. This is illegal. He spits. You cannot raid my records without a warrant. Marcus calls from the side of the studio, stepping into view with a folder. We got one. The district attorney is very curious how your phone ended up under the same cell tower as your boss' car at midnight in a storm. Security officers enter quietly and stand near the doors. Gray looks around, realizes the cameras are still rolling, the entire building watching. You think I did this alone? He snarls at Violet. You think the money just fell into my account? The people behind this will not let you get away with this little theater. Maybe, Violet says. But they will have to do it with the whole city watching. Security moves in. Gray jerks back, then sags as they take his arms. You will regret this. He throws over his shoulder. I already regretted doing nothing. Violet replies. He disappears through the studio doors. The room remains silent for a few long seconds. Then noise erupts. People cheer, cry, shout questions. On screens across the building, staff in other rooms do the same. Evan touches Violet's elbow. You all right? He asks quietly. I thought it would feel like the end, she says. It feels like the middle of something else. There will be fallout, he says. I know, she says. But tonight, at least, I am not a ghost. Fallout arrives fast. Regulators call. Politicians call. Advertisers demand meetings. The board huddles behind closed doors for hours. You have to stay on as CEO. One director insists. If you walk away now, markets will see chaos. We need your face on the front page, reassuring everyone. You also needed me not to be dead. Violet says dryly. How did that go? They flinch. We were misled. Another says. We trusted Gray. You trusted the money he brought in, she says. You did not ask where it came from. At night, she lies awake in her penthouse, the city buzzing below. Her old life is all polished floors and glass walls. Everything looks the same. She does not. Evan hates the city almost on sight. He pretends he does not, but she can see it in the way his shoulders go tight in elevators, in the way he wakes at every siren. Lily appears on video, waving from the cabin porch. When are you coming home? Lily demands. I showed the goats your picture. They snorted. That means yes. Violet smiles, throat tight. Soon, she says. I have to clean up a mess first. She spends days in meetings and nights at the kitchen counter of her condo, staring at stacks of paper Marcus leaves. These are settlement agreements. Marcus says. These are cooperation deals for smaller fish. These are resignations. And this one. He taps a page. Is the one you keep staring at. At the top of that page. Appointment of interim chief executive officer. There is no rule that says you have to be the one to fix every broken part. Evan says quietly one night, picking up the page. You can hand the day-to-day work to someone who is not currently recovering from being murdered. People will say I ran, she says. They already did when you vanished. He replies. You did not owe the highway your life. You do not owe this building your future either. She thinks of Anderson Chang, her chief financial officer. They have argued about budgets for years, but he has never once been willing to cut corners for quick gains. He warned me about Gray, she says slowly. More than once. Then give him the keys. Evan says. The next day, Violet calls another company-wide meeting. This company is more than one scandal and one survivor, she says on screen. It is you. The producers, the reporters, the tech teams, the assistants. You kept doing your jobs while the people supposed to protect you failed. She takes a breath. I need time to be something other than a headline. She continues. To heal, to breathe, to remember there is life outside of ratings. Effective at the end of this week, I will step down as chief executive officer. I will remain on the board, and I will be here when needed. But the day-to-day leadership will be in new hands. She nods to Anderson, standing awkwardly beside her. Anderson Chang has been with Heart Media for years, she says. He argued with me more than anyone in this building. He also never once signed off on a cheat. I trust him to steer us through this storm. Anderson clears his throat. I am not flashy, he says. You will not see me on magazine covers. But I like clean books and honest numbers. We are going to have a lot of boring meetings about better controls. I am sorry in advance. The room chuckles, tension easing. Later, in the quiet of her office, Lila leans in the doorway. You could have stayed, Lila says. Run this place for another decade. They would have let you. Violet looks out at the skyline. I know, she says. I also know that when I woke up in that cabin, my first instinct was not to ask about stock prices. It was to ask if the door was locked. Lila studies her. You are really leaving, she says. I am going home, Violet replies. To a cabin and a man who plays guitar in storms. Lila says, softening. Could be worse. Call me when you need someone to yell at a senator from off camera. Violet says. I will still have opinions. I counted on it. Lila says, eyes bright. The mountains welcome them back with cold air and bright leaves. When the truck pulls into the clearing, Lily is waiting on the porch with a hand-painted sign that says Welcome Home Violet in crooked letters. The goats helped. She announces proudly. They ate the mistakes. Violet laughs and scoops her into a hug. Inside, jars of dried wildflowers line the windowsills. A mug she left by the sink weeks ago still sits waiting, washed and turned upside down. It missed you, Evan says. The days that follow feel less like escape and more like arrival. Evan opens a tiny clinic in the nearby town, treating sprains and coughs and stubborn farmers who refuse to rest. Violet helps with paperwork and logistics, her years of executive experience suddenly useful, in a place with flickering fluorescent lights and a waiting room full of mismatched chairs. She plants a real garden behind the cabin. Tomatoes, herbs, stubborn flowers that fight their way through rocky soil. I could buy these in town, she says, wiping sweat from her forehead. That is not the point. Evan replies. You do not get this look buying them in plastics. On stormy nights she still tenses at the first thunderclap, but she is not alone. Evan sits beside her, guitar in hand. Lily rambling about goats drowns out old echoes. One clear evening, Evan appears at the door with a look that makes her suspicious. Walk? He asks. No surprise goats, she says. Promise, he says. They hike to a rocky outcrop that overlooks the valley. The town lights flicker far below. The sky turns pink, then deep blue. I came up somewhere like this before the crash, Violet says quietly, trying to decide whether to blow up Gray's career. I thought if I got far enough from the noise, the answer would feel simple. And now? Evan asks. Now I know big choices rarely feel simple, she says. But they feel less heavy when I am not alone. He reaches into his pocket, fingers fumbling for a second like he is wrestling with his own courage more than anything else. I cannot promise you easy, he says. Storms still roll through. People still call from the city, I am sure. There will be days when you miss walking into a room and everyone jumping. She smiles faintly. It is true. But I can promise you this. He continues. I will stand next to you in every storm. I will remind you that you are more than anyone else's title for you. I will keep the coffee strong, and the door locked when thunder hits. He opens his hand. A small ring made of braided purple cord, and a single silver bead rests on his palm. Lily helped, he admits. She insisted it had to be your color. Violet's throat tightens. You made me a ring out of string, she says. I did, he says. If you say yes, we can always upgrade. But I wanted to start with something that looks more like who we are now than diamonds ever did. He takes a breath. Violet heart, he says. Will you marry me? Not the company, not the legacy, just me. The vet who sometimes forgets where he left his stethoscope. She looks at the ring, at his face, at the valley below where once she drove alone in a storm. When I woke up in your cabin, I did not know my own name, she says. The only thing that felt solid was your voice telling me I was safe. She steps closer. I have had money and power, and front-page profiles, she says. None of that felt as real as planting tomatoes here, or listening to you murder the same 3 songs for Lily. Hey, he protests. She laughs, tears spilling. So yes, she says. I will marry you. He slips the ring onto her finger. It is not perfect. It is theirs. They kiss under a sky full of stars. No cameras, no headlines. Just the sound of wind in the pines. Months later, a Heart Media documentary hits the streaming platform. It is called The Storm We Survived. Lila narrates. It tells the story of corruption and choices, of a car on a mountain road and the woman who refused to stay dead. Near the end, a short phone clip plays. Violet stands on the cabin porch in a knit hat, mug in hand. Evan leans against the railing. Lily chases a goat through the snow, laughing. I thought losing my memory meant losing myself, Violet says to whoever holds the phone. Turns out it just gave me a chance to decide who I wanted to be on purpose. She glances at Evan, at Lily, at the trees. I would not recommend attempted murder as a self-help method, she says dryly. But I am glad the story did not end where someone else tried to stop it. The clip ends there. In living rooms and break rooms, people who watched Violet stand in sharp suits and crush interviews now see her in worn boots on a wooden porch. Some shake their heads, some smile. Back in the mountains, Violet closes her laptop after screening it once, satisfied. She did good, Evan says, hanging up his coat. Lila always does. Violet replies. Lily bursts in, cheeks pink. The snowman needs a new nose. Lily announces. The dog stole the carrot. Looks like we have an emergency, Violet says. She grabs her coat and follows them back into the snow. Somewhere far below, the city glows and hums, still full of stories. This one is hers. She lived. She chose love. And in the quiet between storms, she finally gets to decide how her own story is told.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.